Good evening in the UK. Good morning here in Hong Kong, and hello to everyone else around the world. My name's Mette Hjort, and I'm here at Hong Kong Baptist University. Our speakers today in the Zoom space are Bill Brummel, film director, Thomas Moores, choir master, Sarah Bowden-Evans, singer, with the Shout at Cancer Choir, Dina Iordanova, a film scholar based in St Andrews in the United Kingdom, and then myself. A very, very warm welcome to you all from wherever you are joining us in the world. I'd like to say that there's been a lot of interest in this event, which we're just so pleased about. People from near and far have contacted us, and I just wanted to share one book that showed up in my inbox on Friday. So this is called Sharing Plates on Cooking and Coping with Cancer. And this was sent to me by a colleague who used to work with students in Singapore who were interested in basically engaging with the community of survivors of cancer. And we'll be making a connection to food later on, and Thomas will take us there. So as you know, the focus for today's event is the film made by Bill Brummel called Can You Hear My Voice? And of course, the focus of that particular film is the work of the choir directed by Thomas Moores, Shout at Cancer. In addition to the film, which you will have been able to see over the weekend, we also wanted to share, we're very grateful to be able to share some of the choir's most recent works, namely From Silence into Song and The Tree Chatterers. And before we start, I'd just like to say a few words of thanks. I'm incredibly grateful to Dina for having introduced me to the film, and also to Bill and Thomas, and of course, incredibly grateful to Sarah for being willing to join us as well. We're especially pleased to be able to organize this event, because here at HKBU in the Faculty of Arts, we have a focus, it's a strategic focus on well-being, value, and the public good. And under that focus, we have 6 cross-disciplinary research groups. And one of those research groups is Chinese and cross-cultural health humanities. So there's a powerful interest in the work of the choir. We're going to start with a few questions just to set the context for what will then become a much more free-flowing conversation, which you, of course, also will be invited to join. So we'll start with a little bit about the film's production history, about the history of the choir's impact, how the film is being shared, and then we'll move into a more free-flowing exchange, and we'll also show you those 2 works that I just mentioned, From Silence into Song and The Tree Chatterers. One thing we will definitely be doing is bringing you into the conversation. So please drop your questions and comments into the chat function as we go along. And later on, I will then read those comments and questions out and give our panel members an opportunity to respond. So just to set the stage, let me just read the description of Can You Hear My Voice? Can You Hear My Voice chronicles the one-of-a-kind Shout at Cancer choir in the UK, whose members have all had their voice boxes removed as they prepare for their most ambitious concert, a sold-out performance at London's historic Tabernacle Theatre. The film includes songs popularised by Nina Simone, Tears for Fears, and Louis Armstrong. Along the way, choir members' cancer stories unfold, revealing their struggles with self-identity, self-doubt, and loss. Far from maudlin, Can You Hear My Voice bears witness to the power of music and is a triumphant testimony illuminating a universal theme, the human capacity for resilience in the face of overwhelming adversity. The film is produced and directed by award-winning Los Angeles documentary filmmaker Bill Brummel, his first film since having his own voice box removed in 2016. Like the choir members, Brummel speaks with the aid of a voice prosthesis. Okay, Bill, would you share a little bit of your story about how this film ended up getting made?
Sure, and thank you, Matt and Dina, for hosting the screening, and to the University in Hong Kong for joining us bright and early in the morning. And thank you, Thomas and Zara, for joining us at midnight in the UK. It's 4 p.m. here, so obviously I got the better of the deal. I'd like to preface my answer with just a little story. Before COVID, part of my morning ritual was to stop at my favorite independent coffee shop and get a mocha latte. Now, on one particular day, I was walking out with my mocha in my hand when I came across a very agitated, probably homeless man with probably some psych issues. He was verbally accosting the person working at the newsstand next door. Now, attempting to de-escalate the situation, I asked the distressed man, "Are you okay?" Almost instantly, his affect changed from anger to curiosity. He pointed at my stoma and said in the most unthreatening way, and I quote, "What the fuck is that?" Now, as I explained to him what this is, I slowly walked him away from the newsstand and down the street. By the time we were done, he thanked me for sharing and wished me good luck. Now, probably a lot of you, upon viewing the film, thought to yourself, what the expletive is that? I hope the film answered the question, and I hope you all had a chance to see the film. Now, as Mette said, the film is not about me, but was born of my personal experience. My cancer journey started in 1997 when I was diagnosed with tonsil cancer that had spread to the lymph nodes in the right side of my neck. After undergoing a radical neck dissection, I endured aggressive radiation treatments, a FT dose, over a wide field for 7 weeks. It's likely the radiation saved my life. But 5 years ago, it caused me to lose my larynx. So I had my voice box removed in 2016 due to the long-term damage of the radiation treatments I underwent 23 years ago. Physical recovery for me was really awful, but worse yet, I was saddled with insecurity and fear and doubt. For a lot of us laryngectomies, once we recover physically, shame and isolation are our biggest enemies. We can easily lose self-confidence and retreat from society, withdrawing into a world where we don't have to speak or eat or be seen in public. There were times where I found it easier to isolate myself rather than navigate. I wanted to give up, but with a ton of support from my family, my medical team, and friends, I was able to turn the corner. Now, oh gosh, how long was it? 9 months or a year after my surgery, my doctor, Dr. Uttam Sinha of the University of Southern California, suggested that I make a documentary about the psychosocial aspects of living with a laryngectomy. Now, my first thought was stick to medicine, doc. I'm the expert in this area. Just kidding, it was an excellent idea. But what my doctor had suggested was a topic and not a story. So I went home, fired up Google, and very quickly came upon the Shouted Cancer website. Now, obviously, when I saw it, the idea of a bunch of people without voice boxes forming a choir leapt out of me. But one of the first things I saw on the website was a short video of Sarah, who's joining us tonight, emotionally explaining how shouted cancer had helped her in her recovery. It was at that point that I knew that if I could make the film happen, I had a brilliant character. And overall, I thought, the choir might be the perfect and entertaining way to tell the story I wanted to tell, that of people dealing with the emotional and physical hardships of a laryngectomy, yet still living confident, productive, and enjoyable lives. It wasn't until later that I realized that the story had also a universal theme. It's a story of empowerment and survival that resonates with people combating other diseases, disabilities, or personal struggles, which, when you think of it, is all of us. Now, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. After finding Janet cancer online, I shot off an email to Thomas. So, Thomas, why don't you take it from here?
So I opened up my email one day, and here was an unknown person to me saying he wanted to make a movie about the choir, and it had not been the first time that we've been approached by some producer who make us lose a lot of work in preparing a document for a big company to may or they might get along and go for this project. So I double checked him because we just done something with BBC Three. And Bill Brummel, he had done some really good work, and like he said, he wanted to do this story about the choir to tell the psychosocial impact after laryngectomy, and that's exactly what Charter Cancer was doing and is doing. Is we use music to help people who had their voice box removed to regain their speech, to improve their speech. Music is the motivational tool, it's the techniques of singing that we use to improve that, to explore their new voice, to find their new voice, to find a balance, to accept the new voice to some extent. So it's got a positive effect. Not only as a motivational tool to do the speech, but also for cohesion of a group. It's you share a goal, you do these things together, and that's what really appealed to Bill. Obviously, is that he saw this group of fellow laryngectomies, people who had the same operation, and that was the only thing they had in common. It's a broad variety of different personalities that only have that one thing in common, but share this goal and motivate each other, push each other, not just to explore their voice in a different way, but to go on stage together, to let their voices blend in harmony with professional musicians. And suddenly they realize that in a way, although they've lost their voice, the previous voice, that the new voice might even be stronger than before because of the message they're telling, the inspirational message, not only to the laryngectomy community, but to all sorts of people who are going through a difficult moment in life. And that's a very resonating message indeed that's been brought with music. And in a way, it helps obviously with their confidence, but in a way they've become positive activists, and they stand up with their voice, with their message, and they're telling the story of what it means, what the impact is of laryngectomy, and they're telling the story in an attractive way, in an engaging way, to an audience that has never heard of them. And that audience, unfortunately, is not just the broad audience, the general public. It is research, it is the pharmaceutical industries as well. It is even medicine, where there's sometimes mistakes made because people are not aware. It's not a common operation. So in this way, via this choir that we had formed, we were telling this story, and we had the attention, and they were listening to us. And in this way, we've made quite some changes, and we've been involved now with research. We've made changes into research topics. We've pushed for more funding towards the scattered and overlooked small population of laryngectomies, and that's exactly what Bill has done with his movie as well about laryngectomy. He has helped us amplify our voice, and in the end, we all sharing the same message. And Sarah is one of our choir members who most likely is dying to say something there, because she is very difficult when she can't say what she wants to say. I can see. There we go, Sarah.
Thank you for that, Thomas. I don't think I'm very difficult at all.
Well,
She's not difficult.
you know what I mean.
Not difficult.
Not
Sarah.
difficult. It's difficult to keep it shut when you want to say something.
Sorry, can I say something right before you? You know, when Thomas and I started corresponding, we hit it off very quickly, and I was very impressed with him. We exchanged a lot of emails and had many Skype calls, getting to know each other and brainstorming ideas. This is all before I started looking for funding. He's a man of 1,000 ideas, not all of them great, but a substantial percentage of them great. I mean, he created Shattered Cancer, which I describe as a support group on steroids. He's truly a fun guy. But in the film, Sarah described him best when she said, Thomas is just nuts. The man is completely loopy. So I'll hand it over to you, Sarah, now to tell us more about Thomas.
Thanks, Bill.
Well, that's absolutely right. He is completely nuts. But it's thanks to him that it changed my life, essentially. I was always a very confident person, but when I had this operation that just knocked everything out of me completely. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want anybody to look at me, to hear me speak. So the choir was the real turnaround for me, and this nuts guy Thomas was the real turnaround for me, making me believe that that I was still a person, and I was capable of doing something, and not just something, but something worthwhile. And not just for me, it was helping other people by the group of us getting together, all knowing what each other has been through. Getting together like that was helping each other. And then it went further when Matt Thomas decided, let's form a choir. Raising awareness of what it's like for people, because it's really bad when you first had the op. You saw with the radiation, you go out, people are staring at you. It's a really bad place to be. And unfortunately, I ended up there twice, where I had a procedure done, and I ended up not being able to speak again for 2 years, well, over 2 years. It was the choir that kept me going. It was watching them do what they do that kept me going that second time. And what we learn from all of this is there are other ways to express yourself. And with the singing and the poetry, I just learned a different way of getting that anger out, getting the feelings of what I wanted to say, just in a different way. And yeah, it's been fantastic. And then when we had the opportunity to do the film as well, a whole new thing for me where I was kind of saying it on film as well. So yeah, it's been brilliant. The choir is just fantastic, I think, for anybody that has gone through this type of operation, or if you've lost your voice in for whatever reason. We're currently doing things with people who have lost their voices for other reasons, like motor neurons. And we're doing that in collaboration, and it's fantastic. Everybody just kind of understands everybody else. It's brilliant. I've said enough.
Well, you are brilliant, Zara, as is Damas, and Damas is Lupi also. But we accept that with him. But when I began this process of trying to make a movie, I was a little less than a year out from my surgery. I still had emotional scars and baggage, and attitude of mind is so critical in the recovery process. The choir members actually helped me further unpack my own baggage. They helped me to laugh more. Last year in a paper that says humor is just shorthand for hope, a gamble that will live long enough to hear the punchline. Now, even though we laryngectomies can't laugh out loud like we used to, it's important to laugh in our own way. And the characters in this film, Zara included, all have lovely senses of humor.
Bill, you're slightly frozen now. We did hear you, but I'm gonna bring in Dina. Dina, would you like to follow up with a question? Just need to get you to unmute yourself. Dina, can you just unmute yourself? Dina, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, all right. I will actually also share a story. Thomas and I met in Paris during the dinner at Jim Hayes' place. We recently lost Jim. This was one of the last times I was at his place, and I had taken part in the cooking for that dinner. And the film was being made during this time. I think this was probably about 2 summers ago, Thomas, if I remember correctly. And Sarah, yes, I can confirm that, and I'm sure, as you know, all the other projects Thomas has also confirmed he's completely nuts. But this is because I've been trying to help him with some of the other projects and kind of like, spreading the word about this man around the world in Japan and other places. But watching the film again today, because this is the second time I watch it, I couldn't think how much we need this kind of people, because if it is not for this loony energy, really very few things can happen. And recently Thomas and I were exchanging messages, and he said that he spent recent months in windmill fighting. And yes, indeed, this windmill fighting actually keeps us going, especially at difficult times like this. And so this is hugely important. And I believe that when Bill came across information about the choir, it is probably precisely the inspiration that comes from seeing the windmill fighting and what it can achieve that actually drew you, Bill, to this. So I was deeply moved again to see the film. I had seen an earlier version when I alerted Mette about it, but watching this kind of longer reworked film was particularly interesting for me, because Sarah, you are made to be now the main protagonist in this film, because nobody else gets so much screen time, and I believe it is a great benefit that we have a totally fleshed out protagonist here, the dimension of whose life we're introduced to, and we see your partner, the relationship evolving, the difficulties that you lived through, your amazing creativity, your assertiveness, things which really I was again deeply moved, even though I know what the film was showing. So the second viewing was even more emotive for me. And Sarah, I now feel I've come to know you more or less. As a film scholar, I wanted to share something. Again, rewatching the film today, I thought that actually I also know about one other film, so let me mention about it. There is a film about the film critic Roger Ebert, who also had lost substantial parts of his throat to cancer. He had papillary thyroid cancer, then salivary glands. I'll just share a picture of him. I hope that the screen share is working here. I wanted to share the picture.
It's working.
I will just stop sharing. So there is a film called Life Itself, which is a biographical film by Steve James, one of the American documentarians. I used this film in a class on film cultures, in the class dedicated to film criticism. I didn't even know that Roger Ebert had suffered from cancer, and it chronicled, however, the last years of his life when he was extremely active and continued, because he's probably one of the most influential American film critics, and who was a public figure, but he continued, and the film chronicled how he continued being a public figure to this. So because we are meeting, we are discussing, of course, Bill's film today, but I thought to mention this other one, as I imagine many people probably don't know it, and it tackles a related topic, and I thought it was important. I have a question to Bill. It's very difficult to distribute such sensitive material. Would you tell us how the film travels, especially now in COVID times? It's particularly difficult.
Well, COVID certainly interrupted our release plans. You know, the film was funded totally by donors, 5 corporations and nonprofit foundations, a combination of those. And we got it out, and we had a big premiere in London, hosted by Atos Medical, who was the majority funder. It was 400 people at the Odeon IMAX theater, I believe. Not that we needed an IMAX theater, but it was great to have it be seen on such a big screen. We came back to the States, and the premiere was in February of last year. Came back to the States. We're planning on a US premiere in association with USC, where I mentioned before, I've been a patient for almost 20 years. And that had to be canceled because of COVID. The US premiere was scheduled for the end of March, just when COVID broke and all the lockdowns started to happen. So I didn't really know what to do with it at first. I didn't know what the film festival experience was going to be like. And indeed, in March and April, some of the bigger film festivals were just canceling, like South by Southwest. But as months went by, I started to get the film into film festivals in the US. And so we've gone through about 7 or 8 film festivals. It premiered in October, a film festival premiere at the Nashville Film Festival, and won the audience award in that one. And I've been searching for a distributor. And, Dina, what you bring up is really important. It is a difficult film in terms of sales. It's a difficult topic, even though I think it's done in a really entertaining fashion. So I'm about to settle on a distributor. And it's a sort of middle of the road distributor. And then we will focus on some windows, first broadcast, then video on demand, streaming, education, possibly a DVD release. I thought DVDs were dead, but my distributor says there's still a small market for them. So if I can just do a shameless plug, if anyone is interested in purchasing a DVD when it comes out, please email me at info at bbbronze.com or go to the film's website, which is canyouyhearmyvoice.com, and I'll make sure to contact you when it's available. Probably that won't be for several months. And, you know, I will keep audiences up to date on the website.
That sounds wonderful. We'll look forward to that, and I'm sure you'll have a lot of people going to the website to get the DVD after this session. Thomas, I'd like to come back to something you said about how the work with the choir also has led to research. And just before we brought in our audience today, you were beginning to share a story about research, laryngectomy, and chocolate, and I was hoping that maybe you would share that with all of us.
Yeah, indeed. So it's not just the voice that's changed, that's been taken away, but because the airway is brought forward into the neck, the smell is not triggered anymore, and because of the radiotherapy and the loss of the smell, the taste is altered as well. It's changed. So that and the swallow, that's difficult. It came to my attention that a lot of people who had a laryngectomy could not enjoy chocolates anymore because it stuck too much to the palate. It was difficult to swallow because of the dry mouth. And me, originally from Belgium, I obviously could not stand idle. And so I approached one of the top chocolatiers in the world, Dominique Persone, who developed chocolates for the Rolling Stones for the birthday party once. That's the level we're at. And I asked him, I told him what was going on and how these people couldn't enjoy chocolates as much anymore. And I told him, we as Belgians, we cannot let this happen. And in 8 weeks' time, he came back to me. And in 8 weeks' time, we sat together. We did the research. We sent out and a survey. We knew what exactly the tastes were that they still liked after the operation, which was strawberry and mint. Those were very, very favorable tastes for them. So we developed chocolates with artificial saliva to help the moisture, to help the mouth experience, to help the swallow with strawberry and mint, and it was an absolute hit. Really well received by the laryngectomy community.
Thank you, Thomas. Thomas, would you tell us a little bit about how exactly the choir works, how it meets, how often it meets, and that sort of thing? And could you maybe set up the screening which we're about to do from Silence into Song and the Tree Chatterers, as you talk about how the choir works, and particularly also in COVID times, how the choir has continued to meet and sing?
Yeah, so before COVID hit, we were mainly project-based, tried to have several projects going during the year, and then before the projects we were coming together, because you have to bear in mind that it's a small and scattered group. They have to travel, and sometimes they have to travel 2-3 hours to come to a rehearsal. So it's not that easy to get them together. Sometimes I do rehearsals all over because I'm still working as a doctor myself. So I have patients. So if I'm in a certain hospital, they might be close by. So then we meet up in that hospital, or I go somewhere else, we meet up somewhere else. And then just before the concert or the event or whatever we're doing, we're coming together, the group is together, and we just boost everything, put it all together, and we hope for the best. And most of the time that happens, and it's an incredible experience. So when we do these sessions, we focus on singing, on breathing, because breathing is the powerhouse for the voice. So we really focus on that. We help them with their articulation, and include beatboxing sounds in that, because it's very interesting to make the difference between voiced and non-voiced sounds. But we explore even further, and one of the latest things we've done is Konakol, which is an Indian rhythm language. I'm trying to reach out to different cultures, because we were stuck during COVID. We couldn't travel any longer. So I thought, why don't we travel online? Why don't we explore different cultures in a different way, and whilst we're benefiting from it as well for our voice. And Konakol is an Indian rhythm language that's been passed on for centuries, and it's a way to learn new rhythms, to pass on music from generation to generation. But it's a very interesting exercise for us, because it combines vowels and consonants in very tricky ways. It's the hand coordination, it's the rhythm, it's the fact that you are doing things together that creates joy as a group as well. So that was our journey to India, and at the same time we are doing an opera around voice, around the challenges, the impact of voice changes, and we're doing that together with motor neuron disease and Parkinson participants, where we not just explore with the participants who had voice changes, but their peer, their supporters, and the technology, the experts in technology, and specifically for these different type of diseases, or how it can affect your voice, but also the researchers and the healthcare professionals. Everyone is together, and together we're doing a creative interaction. So everyone is selected for their expertise, but it's not allowed to apply their expertise. Everyone is doing something. Everyone feels out of their comfort zone, because we are singing together. We're doing something creative. We have to express ourselves. And now that interaction is very, very powerful to bring up new ideas, where everyone can learn from the researchers, the technologists, the healthcare professionals, and also the participants. They learn from each other, and their peer, their supporters, their partners are there as well. And this is a beautiful outcome that's been shown on BBC Breakfast lately. And then further than that, we are working on a project in Japan. So I'm coming closer to you guys in Hong Kong. So in Japan, it is 75 years ago since the bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And it was the first time this happened. Yeah. So the world was in shock. But the second shock wave came when the scientists came on board, and they said, nothing will live here for 75 years. But 200 trees decided to come back to life. And those trees, they blossomed after 3 months. And what we've done is we've went out and we've recorded the sound of those trees, the sound of those silent witnesses that had been standing there and had stood their ground. And we were wondering what they had to tell us at the exact same moment, 75 years after the bombs were dropped. And with those sounds, we created a soundscape, and we let their sounds, their music, their song, because it's in the end, it's a choir of those trees, interact harmoniously with our choir. And bear in mind that our choir, most of our participants had radiotherapy, which is the healing effect of radiation. So we combine this healing and this destructive effects of radiation in a powerful message of hope. And that's one of the I think the songs, the videos you will see. And why is that particularly important for Japan? It's a way to help spread the message that radiotherapy has a healing effect, because in Japan, because the bomb caused so much damage, but also after damage. So a lot of cancer cases are linked to it. So there is this negative perception towards radiation, which is embedded, it is grounded in this population. And so to help in Japan to help get a more positive image of radiotherapy. This is what we are contributing to. And what we'll see is a poem on music with the cello, which is a wood instrument and which is the closest sound to the human voice. So that's why we went for the cello. You'll hear the sound of the trees combined with a poem that links both choirs, the choir of our laryngectomy participants and the choir of trees, the survivor trees, which are called Hibaku Jumoku. And yeah, that's the first one. And then do you want me to introduce the second video as well? Or?
Maybe, yes, please, if you would. Thank you.
So what we did as well as we were listening to the sounds of the trees, and it was like they were talking to each other, the trees, and so we started to use their sounds as a way to explore new sounds for our group as well. And in a way they started to interact. The two choirs started to interact, and it was almost like, you know, when you are a professor or a teacher, and there's been a school holiday, and it's the first hour, the first lesson after school holiday, and the classroom is full of excited kids chattering around. Well, that's exactly the moment that the teacher walks into the door, and it's just one huge wave of chatter and enthusiasm. That's exactly what we thought we were hearing when our choir was talking to the trees. That's the tree chatters.
Thank you so much. So we will start with the tree chatters, please, Terry. Thank you. Okay, and then we just need 15 seconds here. Then we'll see from silence into song.
Life gripped me fiercely, sinking its fingers deep into the scars in my bark. I'm less wild now, but count my new rings of life in the trunk that has become a shrine. There are new leaves in my thinning ground, like vaporized gulls, caressed in the breeze, still singing our song. a whisper amplified in the clouds. The crackling in my arms finds a pulse as they open wide to try to reach you and hold you for a while, to embrace and share my stillness and wonder. Our roots intertwine and whisper. Stop here and listen, we will grow old together. The light of the world went out that day, but we watched the sun rise again, a dazzling beacon of hope.
Such incredible work. I'm so glad to have been able to see this. I'm sure our audience feels the same way. We were going to move into a more free-flowing conversation now and also start to bring our audience in. But before we do that, I just wanted to ask two questions. The one is, I realize that right now travel is very, very difficult, but will the choir eventually start to travel? I mean, Thomas, you mentioned that you're coming closer and closer to us via your work in Japan, and I'm just wondering whether we might be able to bring the choir to Hong Kong at some point. I think that would be just absolutely amazing. I would just absolutely love to do that, and I'm sure that many of my colleagues would be just delighted to help make that happen. So that was one question, and then I guess the other question is more to Sarah. So what we've seen now with these three works is that the work of the choir is really evolving, and my sense is that that choir members are very much, part of that creative process of pitching ideas and thinking about new ways of doing things. And I'd just like to hear a little bit from you, Sarah, about how that process of sort of co-creating things is working, and where do you see the choir going next? What would you like to do with the choir?
I don't know, really. We're doing so much all of the time. We're doing big things with Japan. There's so much going on. And Thomas is always open to ideas of somebody that's thought of a poem that would be good, or a song that would be particularly good. And yeah, there's been so much going on. It's difficult to know everything, even with COVID, it's still happening. So who knows, when restrictions are lifted, we may well be there in Hong Kong, I don't know.
It's so great.
But yeah, I don't see any sort of boundaries with the choir anymore. Thomas has done so much. So yeah, it's so much has been done, but so much more to do.
Right.
And it's better all the time and more exciting. Yeah.
And Thomas, are you finding that there's more and more support for the choir and for the work that the choir is doing? You mentioned, having been on BBC and clearly, the collaborations now also with the very prominent researchers in Chocolatier and so forth. It seems like there is really growing support and awareness. Is that the case? Is it possible to do more and more because of the support?
Well, we've definitely built up a credibility when we approach someone. The story we're telling is appealing. It always opens up their eyes, and it's always a twist to what we're trying to achieve, which is slightly out of their comfort zone, but it's actually in their expertise, which is the trick to get them on board. In a way, they love the idea of contributing to a good cause as well. And let's be honest, it's not bad for anyone to be involved to do something with a social cause, basically. So that helps. Did we achieve a lot? Is it much easier to do things? It's still the same amount of energy and amount of pushing you have to do, despite having spread this message and to millions of people being on BBC World on the radio. We had 2 long episodes of an hour in total, so many times on BBC News, and also national television in Belgium, in Russia, and in France even. It helps mainly for credibility. Is a support now suddenly coming in via email on our bank account to help us with all these projects? No, it's still as much of a fight as it was before. But let's say that it goes slightly easier to get the right partners on board.
Yes. Thank you. So let me just see whether the participants have follow-up sort of questions and comments, and we'll move into a more free-flowing conversation now. And could I ask the audience that is joining us online to start dropping in comments, observations, questions into the chat function, and then we'll bring you in just a moment. Bill.
Sarah, I have a question for Zara, if you don't mind. As a documentarian, I'm always interested in this. How do you think having a camera in your face changed, or did it change? Did it change the way that you acted and what you told me, and your story as you portrayed it?
Yeah, it was strange at the beginning to have the camera there, but I think you made it very easy for the camera to be there. I think everything was explained at the beginning, and we were supposed to try and act normal. Well, how could you act normal with a camera in your face? I think the nice thing was that getting to know you and Don and Stuart, you became almost like part of the family almost immediately. So it almost was like you weren't there in a sense. And both myself and my husband felt very comfortable with having you in the house. But there was also a bit of me that felt it was an opportunity to get my point across. Not just to whoever's watching it, but also to my husband. Because when I read that poem to him that I'd written for him, he'd never heard that before. And that is real. He had never heard that before. He didn't even know.
I get asked that a lot from viewers. That you set that up, and I said no, he had never heard that poem before, and you just happened to mention it to me. Then you would read this poem, and I said, "What? Don't read it to him. Wait."
No, definitely not a setup. Definitely not a setup. So that was all very, very genuine reactions from Nigel, and the way that I read it as well was a very genuine. That was one take as well. That was not, that was just one take.
Yeah.
And it was just very emotional.
Yeah. I think
yeah, very emotional.
I think all of the choir members had some concerns about how they would be portrayed, but I think it was a lot easier to lift those apprehensions. Those apprehensions were mitigated because I'm also a laryngectomy, and I think there's a bond between us, a kinship between all those who have had the surgery.
Yeah, no, I personally think it was a very true account of my life. I can't vouch for anybody else, but from my personal point, that was a very true account.
I made up all the other stories.
Sorry?
I made up all the other stories. Just kidding. I don't want the documentary police out of me.
It was a very true account of what I went through, what I still go through. Yeah, it was perfect. And thank you.
You were lovely in the film. Obviously, you're a lovely person, but you were absolutely brilliant in the film, as was Nigel.
Thank you very much.
We have a question from Arthur. We have a couple of questions. I'm going to take Arthur's first because it follows on, I think, from the conversation. It has been said that one of the distinguishing features of personality is our language and speech. Earlier in the movie, sorry, I just need to track it here. Earlier in the movie, Sarah said, "My voice is part of my personality. Am I losing my identity? I would never be me." Later in the movie, another laryngectomy said, "I'm still me, even when I lose my voice." Could Bill or Sarah comment on this apparent loss and recovery of personal identity for people who have lost their voice?
You want to take it, Sarah, and I'll chime in later.
For me, personally, the loss of my voice was so dramatic because I didn't think I sounded at all like me, even when I started speaking again. I also have a daughter with special needs who is non-vocal, and that was very dramatic. I wouldn't be able to talk to her, or that she wouldn't understand that was actually me talking, because I didn't know whether she would really be able to get her head around that. So for me, it was all to do with losing my personality. And also I used to have a thing with, ever since I was a child, where I would mimic other people's accents and impersonate people and things. And I thought I would never be able to do that again. And it was always part of like a joke within the family. So yeah, I did find that quite devastating. But then when I got my voice prosthesis, I thought I sound dreadful. And it was only when I started going to the voice rehabilitation classes and learning how to breathe properly and getting a bit of intonation in my voice that really gave me that confidence back. Maybe to other people I still sound pretty dreadful, but I know that compared to what I sounded like directly after the operation, this is a huge improvement, huge. So I wouldn't say I'm the most confident person in the world now, but that has definitely helped me. Most definitely helped me.
Bill?
Well, I think Zara is right. It's really true. So much of our self-identity is wrapped up in how we sound. You know, you have your voice from the time you start talking. And to lose, there's a distinction about losing your voice entirely and losing the voice that you had. When after my laryngectomy, I didn't speak for 3 months because I took a long time to heal. Part of the damage of radiation was that there's a lot of scarring and swelling that takes more time to go down. So I couldn't speak for 3 months. And even when I started speaking, you know, it was just phrases, you know, very short sentences. And I didn't, like Sarah, I didn't think I sounded well. And it really, I found that the emotional support I got really helped in my physical recovery. You know, all along the way, when I was feeling fragile, my medical team urged me to take control of my own recovery. You know, and all the times I've known him, which has been a long time, my doctor has preached a holistic approach to health that includes traditional medicine, nutrition, mindfulness, and exercise. And so I started a walking regimen that eventually led to 4 or 5 mile walks a day, 6 days a week. I started doing daily stretching. When stress crept in, I practiced deep breathing. I started to eat a healthier diet. And slowly, I started to regain the confidence that I had, and I started speaking better. I think that at its heart, this question, you know, speaks to survivorship. And there are no guidelines or timetables to survivorship. It's different for everyone, and everyone's outcomes vary. It's easy to, how should I say this? It's easy to slip into the why me state of mind. Why did I get cancer? Why did I have to have a laryngectomy? Invariably, I ask these questions when I'm feeling sorry for myself. So one of the things is at these times, I try to remember to reframe the question. Why not me? You know, surely I'm not so special as to be spared suffering. So why not me? If somebody must get cancer, why not me? If somebody might have a laryngectomy, why not me? But can I construct something affirmative from my situation? Maybe a deeper personal awareness or understanding. And maybe there was, there's something in my psyche or personal experience that I can harness to share with others to ease their way through the same ordeal. And making this film was cathartic and therapeutic for me.
Thank you, Thomas. We have a question thank you, Bill. We have a question for Thomas from Angeline Tam. Hello, Thomas. What does Shout at Cancer mean to you? What do you enjoy most about the choir?
All right. Shout at Cancer, to me, it's a combination of both passions. I'm a trained medical doctor, and my childhood, I had been a singer, and I wanted not to lose that passion and combine both of them, and to see it so beautifully come together in form of the choir performing on stage, to see how this group of friends, now I consider them friends, family almost, has been able to get so confident to achieve the impossible, to believe in pushing the boundaries and thinking out of the voice box. It's just a tremendous feeling of achievement that we've done together. So I feel part of them. I'm singing in my head, or I'm singing along when we are performing, and all our voices just blend together, and we are just saying one message.
I have another question. I think this is going to be for Bill and for Sarah. This is from John Winsenberg, who is a singer himself and also conductor of one of our choral ensembles. Thanks to all of you for joining us. Many people feel that they never know or find their true voice throughout their lives, or at least that it shows itself in different ways at a different time. Did you or any of the people you've been involved with feel that they've found their true or more real voice through the experience? Did the notion of choir change for anyone with or without previous choral experience after the choir was formed and experienced performance? So the idea of a more true or more real voice through the experience.
Sarah, why don't you take that? Because I haven't performed that very much.
I don't know really. I always had a bit of a thing for singing before I had my operations. I wouldn't say I was any good. So maybe whether I found my true voice, but it's given me the opportunity to try and find a true voice now. Maybe that's the way I would think of it, that I've now got that opportunity to try and find that voice. But I don't look at that voice just as a singing voice. I look at it as a voice of getting a message across. Because it's not just about singing, it's about the poetry that we have written ourselves to express ourselves. So maybe I found my true voice in the sense of being able to express myself, but not particularly as a singing voice, if that makes sense.
Yes. Bill, did you want to come in on that as well?
I think that there's a difference between finding your inner and outer voice, obviously. And I think that anytime somebody goes through a really traumatic illness or injury, that there's a point of reflection. What's my life about? When you're faced with death, you start to think about things in the big picture. So I think my inner voice and my inner being, I started to reflect more about those kind of topics, about survivorship, and am I doing everything that I can do to live a life that's productive and meaningful and happy. I mean, I'm not sure this relates to the question as much, but fighting cancer is a battle, and your energy and outlook can improve over time, but it's not a light switch. And victory, should not be measured by how long we live, but how well we live. One of my pet peeves are obituaries that in the first sentence or first line start something like this. After a 3-year battle, Marjorie lost her battle with cancer. To me, that completely misses the point. The real battles are between despair and hope, and between stress and mindfulness, and between isolation and community. And the funny thing is that when we win these battles, generally we live longer. And I think to win these battles, you have to go on a journey of self-reflection. Just as an aside, Bruce Springsteen has a song called Badlands that long ago, when I was first diagnosed with cancer 23 years ago, I adopted as my recovery anthem. The song is really about finding strength and inner faith to push through adversity and fear. One line reads, It ain't no sin to be glad you're alive. Indeed. And I'm sort of adopted that as my mantra.
Thank you, Bill. Ellen Jang says, this is Ellen from Religion. I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of this absolutely fantastic documentary. I literally burst into tears when I heard Louis Armstrong's What a Wonderful World from those folks. To me, they are no longer just human voices, they are the voice from heaven. Plus, I would like to mention the healing power of music. The documentary also reminds me of a French movie entitled The Chorus, produced a few years ago, which tells a story about how a music teacher in a boarding school transformed the heart of the kids. So a comment about the power of music, and a big thank you to you for sharing
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I believe that music has enormous power as well.
Let's see. I think I don't have any other questions from the audience. Thomas, do you want to come in on any of these points?
Well, I could add that if we want to continue on music, it goes even further, and there is scientific thoughts or propositions that the fact that we as a humankind developed a language is because of the fact that we appreciate music, because it's the same areas in the brain that get active when we are speaking, or when we are listening to speech, as when we are listening to music. So music and the ability to appreciate music is not only something that unites us, that makes us feel connected, that allows us to feel emotions that are sometimes difficult to express with words or with colors or in different ways. But yeah, it's the basis of how we ended up communicating as well, how we developed languages. And obviously there's different languages that we developed, but the roots, if you go back, we can feel when we are listening to different types of music, to different cultures of music. It's a strong power, and that's what we're using for laryngectomy speech, to help them recover their speech as that motivation. But it makes sense because it is those areas. It's listening to what you're doing, and to feel the vibration as well, to feel the connection with yourself, to get used to your own new voice. And yeah, it's your voice sounds like music to your own ears in a way. So it's like we are all singing our song, and it's nice to sing together here and there.
Yeah, even for those who watch the film, I hopped up the final number of the concert and sang with the choir, and that felt so good. And before my surgery in 2016, the only exposure I had to laryngectomies was through anti-smoking advertisements, and I don't know if they played these in Hong Kong, but in the States they were very common. It's an older person with an uncovered stoma scares viewers about the dangers of smoking. I'm all for cancer prevention, don't get me wrong, but after my surgery, and as I got to know more and more people who had the surgery, including choir members, it became very clear to me that the stereotypical image of a laryngectomy paints an inaccurate picture. So many of us remain vital and active, and it's so important to do the things that you love to do before your surgery, like singing. But most folks don't get there without going through a rough period. But I wanted to bust that stereotype up with the film, and I hope we did that.
You definitely did that. utterly did that. Yeah. Thomas, in terms of music and healing, I think different cultures approach that connection in quite different ways. Are you finding that you are beginning to connect with groups in other cultural contexts that are also working with the connection between music and healing?
In the way of music therapy, which is often used, we've made a bridge. We've got a connection with a local institution in music therapy, and we are gonna explore collaboration. But that just happened just before COVID hit, so that's a slow burner. Let us say, we're trying to reach out to because it's such a small community, but we want to make them strong. We want to make this community like build a cohesion, and yeah, we're definitely going to use music to achieve that. Hence the Konako and the Japanese project. But there's many ways. Music is it's very linked to our emotions as well, and it gives us a good mood as well. So there is the effect of music as well, the fact that we move on music, that we dance on music, is because how we listen to music is next to our motoric areas, our premotoric areas. So that's why we tap along, or that's why we want to dance. And the fact that we are synchronizing with each other creates a group cohesion, a good feeling, and that again has a positive effect on not just mood and cortisol levels, which build up your immunity, but it's a positive psychological effect. So definitely there's many ways in which music can be used, even for pain. They're starting to use music before anesthesia, and apparently there's less pain. There's a better pain tolerance afterwards. Certain procedures just to calm people down. So there's definitely many positive impacts of music.
And I know music's been used on patients with dementia as well. In fact, and for the life of me, I can't remember the title, but there's a film all about their coming back alive or something like that, where they're people who with dementia were totally out of it. They play an important piece of music from their past in their headphones, and they become alert again. It's really incredible.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Let me see. There are no further questions from the audience. I'm mindful of the fact that it's like well past 1 o'clock in the morning for Thomas and Sarah. So maybe we should begin to bring this to a close.
I want to say something. Thomas, I've been out with Thomas and Sarah and other members of the choir. They can go a lot later than 1 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. Well, we didn't know this. All right.
But they usually have a drink in front of them, so they might be tired now.
Okay. Dina, do you want to come in?
No, nothing besides to say thank you very much, and I'm really excited it happened, and hopefully we meet at other festivals or other events.
I completely agree.
Yeah, completely agree. And if Shadow Cancer comes to Hong Kong, I want to be invited as an honorary member.
Absolutely, Bill. Absolutely. I'm going to try to do this. Definitely.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was an absolute gift to encounter your work and experience it. And thank you for staying up late and being with us. And yeah, and to the audience as well. Thank you for joining us from all sorts of places around the world. Radhika, nice to see you in Copenhagen there. Okay, bye everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Zara.
Thanks,
Bye,
Dina.
Thomas.
Bye-bye.